Who dat to you? Welcome back to the Who Dat Confessional podcast. Talking today about your quarterback situation because it has changed. And look, feel how you feel in either direction. But if you don't appreciate it in either direction, and we're talking about all directions here today, well, you should, because New Orleans, either way is coming out of this, the better. I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, Elias J. Williams. How you doing, my friend?
Pleasant. The news that I woke up to, what was that, Saturday? I woke up Saturday, and I hadn't even gotten the text mail. I was elated when I got the message. Pleasantly,
Derek Carr
surprised.
retires.
It's a wow moment. But here's the you said something. You say, things are changing. Did anything really change though?
Well, I will say one thing that doesn't change is people's perception. And I've noticed that in all of our comments, even since you and I came back together, how people feel about Carr. One thing that I'm curious about, and you and I have talked a little about this already, how much of the injury was real? I think this proves the injury is real to a degree. How severe, obviously this is not just smoke and mirrors by an agent trying to get a trade. It was real. So for those who doubted, just thought he was being dramatic, I think one thing I love about just life is as you get older, you learn things aren't mutually exclusive. There could have been drama, but there's also this, and they're both true. So
accurate. Yeah.
I think that's what we have here. And at the end of it, as a Saints fan, what I appreciate is Carr has taken a lot of heat, right? You might like Carr, you might dislike Carr, but we can all agree that in terms of a New Orleans Saint, he's taken a lot of heat. And he ended up giving the Saints a break by giving back $30 million. Retires. It's going to get filed on June 2nd. So it's a post June 1st. They split what dead money's left. But instead of just sitting and saying, hey, I'm going to carry this, he gives it back. The retirement was optional. It didn't have to happen. He doesn't have to retire. He doesn't have to give $30 million back. He chooses to. And for that, I appreciate it. Do I think the Saints are better off without Carr? I think long-term, the option was always finding the replacement, and Carr never came in as the long-term replacement. Dennis Allen probably hoped that, but I think most people saw Carr as a really good bridge quarterback, kind of how most Atlanta Falcons fans saw Kirk Cousins, even though Cousins believed he was going to be the long-term option. Everybody else seemed to be in on the joke except for the quarterbacks in question here. I think everybody's always been what's after Carr finding that replacement, and the replacement is always finding Breeze's replacement. And yeah, I think this gets you closer to that step. Is the guy in-house? We'll talk about that in a second. But either way, you're going to have a non-Derek Carr quarterback leading this team in 2025.
Two things. One, I'm not ready to give him uber credit for returning the money. And the reason being is very simple.
Hey, the Mercedes business is expensive, man. He might have needed it.
Well, listen, you got up and preached about a lot of things in church. Right?
Literally.
You got up and preached about a lot of things in church. How would you look in front of your God if you were to take money and not give it back? So, in other words, I'm not ready to give him all of these kudos for giving the money back. Giving the money back was the right damn thing to do.
I agree. But we live in a world of people not doing the right thing, especially for somebody who's been slighting you. So.
We do live in a world where people don't do the right thing. But Carr has presented himself as someone who seems to be this person who always does the right thing, and everybody just misunderstands him. Right? So that's why I'm like, yeah, appreciate it, but I'm not going to give you kudos for doing something that you should have done anyway.
I'm always going to give kudos for somebody doing the right thing. I just
Fine. Maybe I'm just being a cynic. The second thing is, for me, it doesn't change much because there was always going to be a battle at the quarterback position. It was just going to be a battle for number two. That's it. Either Shuck was going to be the number two, or Rattler was going to be the number two, and we're going to throw Haener in since
we
Coach
haven't
Kellen
forgot
Moore.
about you, Haener. We haven't forgot.
We're gonna throw Haener in there. But there was always going to be competition for the quarterback spot. He was a bridge. The tea leaves, the money, the restructure, everything was there that this was going to be his last year in New Orleans. So for me, the energy of this year, based on what it's about either starting new or getting rid of things that no longer benefit you.
And either way, it shifted to more positive sentiment as well.
It feels much better. Listen, it was such a huge thunderstorm rain cloud that was just over us with this thing from the moment that we found out that Carr wasn't happy with the restructuring, he wanted to be traded. It's been like this one long train of Busan that's been taking place, and it's been a complete horror movie for the entire last 3 months. So I'm just, listen, it's over. I'm happy. It's unfortunate that Carr was brought here in the essence that we thought that even though it was expressed that he wasn't going to be the savior.
I think he thought he was going to be the savior, and Dennis Allen thought he was going to be the savior. I mean, now two folks who aren't here, but I think the media, us podcasters, fans knew, right? Hopefully nobody truly was out there thinking Derek Carr is going to come through and be a Hall of Famer who replaces Drew. I said he would have been better if Sean Payton was still here because Derek Carr fits Sean Payton to a T, but he wasn't here. Yeah,
he didn't fit to a T. That the issue, and I talked about it. The issue was that Carr was not as good at the line of scrimmage that they thought he was when they brought him in to run the system for Pete Carmichael.
Sure, but Pete thought he would have done fine with Sean, just like Sean resurrected Wilson that
potentially. But for me, when I look at Carr, he's always been that's where I explain it. Top 12 quarterback with moments of top 5 quarterback play and moments of bottom 25 quarterback play. Terry Bradshaw called it that first year. Derek Carr is not the guy. He's too inconsistent. And that's what he's been throughout his career. His winning record suggests that. Consistently, his decision-making has led to him having this great career as far as like yards. And when you look at it, he's like top 25 in
solid
yards
numbers.
And whatnot. But when you look at the wins and what he was able to do for his team and could he take them, we didn't get what we thought we were paying for, but it wasn't a terrible signing because it was better quarterback play than we'd had after Drew.
Absolutely. Look.
And so you have to give him credit for that. So listen, we appreciate you. We know you took a lot of heat. Some of it was your fault. Some of it was definitely your fault.
I will say this.
But
shout out to Tyler Shuck, who has, whether it's his PR team, whether it's his dad, has learned from Carr's mistakes. What was this man doing? He's in the food. He's in the city. He's meeting people. Yeah, he lost a tire to a pothole. And whether that story's even true or not doesn't matter because immediately he's resonating. The man's making effort. Even if he's lying through his teeth. I don't know. Nor am I accusing him of lying, but I don't know. The pothole just felt too real. Like, I don't know now. It feels like you're faking it, but he's doing what he needs to do because we saw what Carr showed shouldn't be done. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I think we spoke about it when I mentioned, like, if you go to China and you go into China and you go in a restaurant, the people will appreciate you if you try to engage in their culture, meaning put down the knife and the fork and the spoon, try to use the chopsticks. It will endear you to the people. It's part of being charming. Carr didn't do that. And listen, everybody wants to say you have some people that are like, it don't matter, he just needs to win. It does matter. It matters. It matters to people. It matters when people want to feel connected to you. Things like that matter when you're expected to be the face of the franchise in New Orleans. That may not be the case everywhere else. You may not need to do those things everywhere else. But New Orleans is such a special place.
You don't need to do those things in Vegas. You don't. Right?
New Orleans is such a special place when it comes to acceptance, and New Orleans is one of the most accepting places. So the fact that he wasn't accepted means that it was obvious he never truly accepted New Orleans, and nobody. You don't have to accept New Orleans. But it is a part of the job that would have made things a little bit smoother, and that's why I always said that even if we would have won, people would have tolerated Carr. They probably still wouldn't have liked him.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks who are veterans that we can tolerate, you and I have talked a little bit. I think that
you think we need a veteran?
I think New Orleans should bring in a veteran. Now, before anybody gets crazy, no, I'm not saying I don't believe in Shuck, nor am I saying I don't believe in Rattler. I think that they should be absolutely a part of the QB1 battle. However, The same thing I said about Rattler before last year's games even happened. I don't like rookie quarterbacks starting, especially if they're not elite first-round talents that are ready. And look, neither Rattler nor Shuck are coming into the league people saying they're day one ready. So not like trying to give Shuck a pass or put Rattler down. Rattler was not ready last year and got thrown into a bad situation. Shuck coming in, even though I like a lot of things about him. One thing about him, though, and you bring this up a lot, he has half the college snaps as Bo Nix, even though he played 7 years. He only played in 42 total games. So, yeah, he's older, has some maturity, but at the same time,
experience.
Nothing says, hey, he's ready to come on the field day one and go against NFL-level talent players. Because he didn't even do a ton against college talent players. And that's not even to say I don't like Shuck. I actually like him better than most of the quarterbacks that Jeff Ireland has brought to this team in the past decade. That said, I think a veteran quarterback is a smart bring. Either they end up starting because your two guys aren't ready yet, or they help push the young guys to be the best they can be by the end of camp, and then you've decided, okay, this is my starting quarterback if I'm Kellen Moore. I think a veteran quarterback, whether you sign a Carson Wentz or a Teddy Bridgewater, or you even trade for a Jameis Winston, though I would hate to trade for Jameis and not start him. I'd feel terrible. But I believe bringing in a veteran quarterback both helps the players and helps the team have a more stable potential this year.
I'm going to flip side on that. And it's because the narrative that has been given about Shuck is basically that he's a quasi veteran quarterback. He's supposed to be a quarterback when you look at his age and you look at the maturity aspect. He's supposed to be someone that can come in and give you a solid floor. You don't know the ceiling. So in other words, when I express this, when we drafted Shuck, what was sold to us was that Shuck was this player with a high floor, but you don't know what his ceiling is because of his age. So maybe a high floor and a low ceiling. I did the research. It's the reverse.
Yeah.
Shuck is actually a guy with a lower floor.
Super high ceiling.
Because of with a higher ceiling. And that's what I've been trying to express to people. When you look at his age, yes, his age may help him maturity-wise. He may be able to get more out of his time because of his maturity, maybe say a younger player. But he's still a rookie. And on top of that, he hasn't had a lot of attempts, as in live balls, and we're not just talking about practice. Spencer Rattler had 1,313 passes in college when he came out. Brandon Weeden, 1,103. Ryan Tannehill, 774. Tyler Shuck is up there. Tyler Shuck, 951. Now, here are the other three quarterbacks that were considered older that have come out in the last couple of years. Jaden Daniels, 1,438 pass attempts. Michael Penix, 1,685 pass attempts. And Bo Nix, 1,936 pass attempts. So when you look at the top of that with Bo Nix, and then you look at where Tyler Shuck is, that's 1,000 attempts.
It's a lot of snaps.
He hasn't had. That's a lot of passes and a lot of practice. So this frame of mind that he's this high floor prospect, he's not. But because he's 6'5" with elite, he's got elite size. He's got a great arm. Yes. And he's got good mobility. It's not an elite arm. It's a great arm. It's probably on par with Rattler's arm, actually. And then he's also got the 4.6 speed, right? So his upside is higher than we've been led to believe. His ceiling is higher, but his floor is not. Still, though.
People get so enamored. I think it's always you fall for a guy and you always want to justify why what you like about them is right.
Right.
I think that's what they look at as Shuck. Like, yeah, I get it. And I do agree. I mean, 26 is generally going to make better decisions in life than 20. And you're probably going to adapt faster to a work environment, especially at 26. And I get that. But at the same time, when you watch his Louisville tape, and then you say you watch his Oregon tape and his Texas tape, all very different players for different reasons, right? You know, they would let him run a lot at Oregon. Not the case in Louisville, right? At all. Louisville basically said, stay in the pocket, do a scramble drill. We're not read optioning you away. We're not running the ball. And sure, he has a few plays because, I mean, he's got better rushing stats in his collegiate career than Rattler, even though Rattler had, kind of more starts as a QB. But the point is that what you're seeing with Shuck is a lot of really high traits. I mean, we do talk about the size, and I don't say this negatively about Rattler, but look at them next to each other. Shuck is so much larger.
Tiny. Yeah.
Rattler is 6 foot 200, and I think that's being very generous on the 200 side. And I'm not trying to say like that makes him bad. There are a lot of things that he's very shifty. You talk about this. It's not that he can't run the option game, but you look at Shuck, and there's a lot of traits that's easy to fall in love with, right? It's that whole he looks the part thing, right? It's just like Marshawn Lattimore. You see Marshawn, he looks like an elite corner. Like so much that the injuries, you're like, don't worry, he'll be better. He looks the part. Marcus Davenport looks the part of a dominant defensive end. So Shuck has that. And it's easy to say, hey, look, because I see all these glittery diamonds, he's definitely going to be there. But truthfully, when you look at it from a scouting perspective, that's why I love trait bait analysis. Take away the opinion. You've got tape on him, and it's good tape. But you've got significantly less tape over a longer period of time than other options. There's nothing to guarantee that he comes in right now and performs better than Spencer Rattler. He has to show that. And that's why I'm so big on the bridge veteran quarterback, even if it's a 1-year Andy Dalton type of thing, kind of how they've got him in Carolina doing that right now. You've got to have something to fall back on. And it's also, I don't like the narrative that people are trying to say the second round player who's picked 40 is Kellen Moore's tied to guy.
We discussed that.
I don't get that narrative either. Now, if Moore had argued to draft him in like the top 15, like I've got to have him, sure. But no, his first pick with the Saints was an offensive lineman, which is exactly what Moore's been saying. Moore's pick is to rebuild the line first. He's been very clear about that. Shuck is a good piece that he likes having, but that's not his guy. So I'm not like super needy to have him starting day one.
The issue that I have with the logic that he's Kellen Moore's guy is the impression that Kellen Moore actually did all of the work on Shuck. What people fail to understand is that there's usually a brain trust when it comes to decision making, drafting players, the assessment. First of all, Shuck is an Ireland brainchild because Ireland runs the entire scouting show. So it's not Kellen Moore versus or Shuck/Kellen Moore versus Rattler Allen or last year just because Allen is gone and Rattler wasn't his pick. It is literally a decision between Loomis, Ireland, and then the coach.
Yeah.
2 of the 3 people that selected Rattler are still there. So essentially, it's Ireland's last year quarterback versus Ireland's this year quarterback. I don't think it matters who wins, and I don't think Shuck has a leg up just because Kellen Moore picked him. It was pick 40. They waited to get him. And as we've been told, when you look at teams, they tell you as you get round, it's just a player has more holes in his game. So first round quarterback has fewer holes in his game than a second round quarterback.
Yep.
Shuck has significant holes in his game. So this whole thought process of he's the guy, he's just a shoe-in, I absolutely hate it. He does have somewhat of a leg up.
I was saying this was a purposeful decision. They liked him, but I also really need to stress that the scouting report on Shuck has been in this team for 2 years. Like this wasn't wasn't a spur of the moment. He could have been in the draft last year. They were building a report on him.
And they might have picked him, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And then they come back, they're building one now. And then Moore didn't get here till 3 months ago, y'all. So Moore's what I look for in a quarterback comes in after the scouting department has already done the film study. They don't go and redo the film study a week before the draft. They've already done the process. And then it's okay. Yes. How does he interview with Kellen Moore matters? Mm-hmm. How does Kellen Moore's view of his tape matters? But the scouting report was built before Moore was even in the office. So it's not fair to Moore, especially, or Shuck, to then be like, oh, they're married together. And if one fails, they both fail. No, still like him though. Like, I'm not saying anything negative about Shuck, but like all these narratives are getting built. And I think people need to calm down and let the process happen.
It's the process. And Moore has avoided, every time I've listened to the his interviews and people have tried to slide in Shuck being this guy, Moore has purposely sidestepped that and just said, hey, he's somebody that we felt good about. We want to work with him. We feel good about him in the room. Listen, do you think that Kyle Shanahan, if he was just tied to Trey Lance because Trey Lance was his guy, do you think they would have given Brock Purdy a chance if he was so held up on his guy? You can't do that. The NFL is still a business. So you should be looking for whoever wins, not for your guy. Your guy is who wins the starting quarterback position.
And that's what we're seeing from them right now. They're rotating immediately. Who's going to have those snaps?
Like that.
And it's like, again, I like to stress this too, because everybody who gets real high on Shuck, last year, you just witnessed what happens when you throw a quarterback into a situation he's not ready for and the team's not ready for him. Why would you want to do that to Shuck, right? And not that I'm saying I don't believe in this offensive line this year, because I actually am very excited about this offensive line. It's an offensive line that's still figuring out who's going to play where. And I still like this offensive line. But you don't even know who's going to be you know who's going to be center, but everything else is up for grabs to an extent.
I've got one angle on why I'm actually okay with seeing the competition go through with just those two quarterbacks, and why I would be okay if Shuck wins it. Because they'll be splitting number one snaps. They'll be getting a lot of development. Rattler didn't get a lot of development last year. His development was supposed to be holding the clipboard, but because they held that competition between him and Hainer all the way through week 6, there was a lot of development that didn't take place for Rattler. Because Carr is gone, there's a lot of development that's going to take place that they should be able to get them in a better position to be ready, versus Rattler having to step in week 6 last year with very little development and an offense that wasn't built around him. And so things have to be tweaked. At least in this scenario, you see the competition. You have time to develop the offense around the player, get to know the player, but still develop the player because he's getting a high snap count.
Is this still why I want a veteran to come in, though? Because we actually never answered the question when we raised it a few minutes ago. Like, you also don't want to pressure either one to have to be that guy. Like, if they win, I want them to win. Don't get me wrong. I want one of them to win. I want one of them to start, one of them to prove it. But I want that fallback of a veteran where if neither are truly ready, because I also believe that while Shuck looks the part, like he really looks the part, I believe Rattler should be ahead of Shuck. He's had a year now of offseason. If I had to pick who's your starting quarterback right now, it's not Shuck, because Rattler has time, and I've said my piece about Rattler's negatives, but he's also now coming off that rookie year. I'm not going to blame him for the rookie year. We know what we saw. We have the tape. But how did he grow in that full year of NFL offseason? Not, am I going to be in the draft? Where am I going to get drafted? Blah, blah, blah. Hanging out with my friends and family, not working out except for like with specialists to get better for the combine. No, his past year has been NFL offseason, as in him working out, him getting better, him honing his craft. That's his focus. What's he going to look like? And hopefully he looks much better, right? Like, hopefully he's taking a step up. He should have taken a step up. It's his second year. I don't want to just pigeonhole either one, but at the same time, I want there to be that veteran, even though he technically is a veteran, that they can fall on if neither has developed where they need to be.
See, I'm against it. And I'm against it, brother. I'm against it, one, because you're stealing snaps again. You add another player, so now you're splitting snaps between 4 players again, which is going to then limit the development that you can get by now only having 3 quarterbacks. The second thing is if you feel Rattler is the starting quarterback, if you feel Rattler should be the starter day one, if Shuck can beat him, doesn't that mean that Shuck is on his level and should then be looked at as the number 1 quarterback? Because at that point, you have to consider that he's probably ready because he came in and beat out a second-year guy who should have things at least under control, does have his own upside. We talked about Shuck and Rattler both having 2nd to 3rd round grades. Rattler was no slouch. He fell to the 5th round last year because all of the teams that wanted quarterbacks drafted one. But they made it very clear. Allen spoke on it. I think I saw another quote. They had Rattler rated as a 2nd to 3rd round quarterback.
Mhm.
They just got him in the 5th. Shuck, second or third round quarterback. They maybe drafted him a little bit earlier, but there were rumblings that there were definitely teams who were going to take him. One of them probably being the Rams, and they would have likely sat him for a year behind Matthews. So we are in agreement that I think we would prefer if Shuck didn't have to go through the same thing that Rattler did last year, and you would prefer, however, you also get to develop him more than you got a chance to develop Rattler last year, because there should be more snaps available.
Yeah, I almost
more
want to say
coaching available.
I almost want to word it like this. Like, I want the pressure to be on Rattler, not Shuck, but I don't want that to sound like a negative. Like, if I want Rattler to prove himself right now. Like, it's your turn, your opportunity, prove it.
Best case scenario would be Rattler winning right out, because that would allow Shuck the time to wait.
But that's
we
also
spoke about the Patrick Mahomes scenario would be the perfect ideal scenario for Shuck. Someone's in place, a starter. They're not playing terrible, so you maybe see Shuck week 16, week 15. If Rattler is doing bad, maybe week 10. But preferably, you want him to just sit and learn as long as he.
And see, that's why I like the veteran, because here's what I'm saying. I want Rattler to prove it, but if he doesn't, I don't want that to force Shuck into the same spot Rattler was in last year. And that's why I want the veteran.
Same spot. It's not the same spot, because the situation is different. The development makes it entirely different. Rattler was splitting snaps with Haener, and Derek was getting all of the reps. So the development was there, but it was limited development. By having a competition for number one between two guys, the development is there. So it won't be the exact same scenario as Rattler, in the sense that he'll be getting thrown in unprepared. You have ample time to prepare him that you didn't have last year, because you had to divvy the snaps up differently. So that's why I see the scenario, even though I want him to wait as long as possible, I don't think you need to have a veteran quarterback to do that. In fact, you have 3 veteran quarterbacks on the staff.
I was going to bring my
Moore
point.
was a former quarterback. Linehan
but guys who
there.
can actually play, though.
Rosen,
I know from the development section. But what about Jake Haener? As far as the Jake Haener thing goes, I would rather dump Jake Haener for a quality veteran like a Wentz, like a like a Bridgewater, like trading for a Winston. That is my fallback plan, not Jake Haener.
How many veteran quarterbacks has Kellen Moore ever worked with? How many veteran quarterbacks has he ever cared to work with? He's always worked with young quarterbacks. One of his traits is that he's developed, or at least in the essence of the quarterback down there in Dallas, he who will not be named, I think it's something like Prescott. He worked with him as a 4th round pick to develop him. Then he goes over to the Chargers, and that's a young quarterback just going into his 2nd year. I think it's not necessarily his MO, but Moore's actually experienced with getting young quarterbacks ready. And I think that's an important part to this angle too, because that room that he established is completely different from last year's coaching staff for developing quarterbacks, right? We spoke about it. Nussmeier is a former quarterback. Tozen is a former quarterback. Linehan is a former quarterback. Moore is a former quarterback. If ever there was a room for development for quarterbacks, it would be this environment. I am not actually worried about the development of either player. That's why I'm so focused on the competition. Now, would I bring a veteran in? Possibly. Like I said, it would be Teddy Bridgewater if I was worried about who the number 2 was going to be. But even if Rattler is the number 2, I would feel good about Rattler as the number 2. I would feel good about Rattler as the number 1. I would feel good about him being number 1 and Rattler the number 2. That's why the competition is so important for me. I do not think you should bring a veteran in unless both players are showing that they're not progressing in the way that you would prefer them to be.
So we'll recycle this and cycle back to this in the middle of camp.
We will.
We'll see how it's looking. But that also brings us, what you got?
The other young rookie? Yeah, it brings to the other young rookie.